Pro wrestling is an ever-evolving industry, with encyclopedias being updated, documentaries being released, and relationships mended or destroyed. The attitudes and narratives of wrestling superstars begin to change. Individuals like the Ultimate Warrior, Bruno Sammartino, and others are brought back into prominence, while the history of some of the other bright characters are being washed away or changed. Some are pigeonholed and being remembered for that one event or that one specific moment in time. Others become as insignificant as a crossword answer. My job as PWP's resident historian is to remind you of the impact that these individuals and teams left on the industry. This is PW Profiles. When you think professional wrestling managers, the obvious come to mind. Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Captain Lou Albano, Paul Heyman. One that often gets left into side notes of history is Gary Hart. Is this a name that's, been mentioned to you before? You've seen it on a match on the network?
I know he's a fake Hart.
Yeah, he is not related to the Harts.
He's trying to make money off the name.
He's in that fake Hart category, like Julia Hart.
And Kier Hogan. They're all one and the same.
Yeah.
These are famous names.
Like a lot of managers, he actually started as a wrestler. He debuted in 1960. And he became a manager in the late 60s. He moved on to WCCW, where he was the head booker. He actually booked the start of the Von Erich Freebird feud, which lit the territory on fire. In the Triumph and Tragedies of World Class Championship Wrestling, it was said that after that event, Michael Hayes was excited because of all the money it's going to generate. He got word Gary Hart quit, and it's because he earned fractions on the dollar of the gate for the show, even though he's the one who booked it, set it all up. So he felt disgruntled, and he left. He did come back to WCCW. He also had appearances in WCW. His biggest managerial claim to fame, the first was in WCCW, where he was one half of the leaders of the H&H stable. This was he and another manager in WCCW, and they had all the heels that faced off with the Von Erichs. This was with Armand Hassan, and they had characters like Bugsy McGraw, Bill Irwin, who would later go on to be the Goon, the Great Kabuki, Checkmate, who's the Great Les Thornton, the One Man Gang, the Samoan SWAT team, Gino Hernandez, Chris Adams, Nord the Barbarian, Abdullah the Butcher, and Al Perez. And like I said, he went to Georgia Championship Wrestling Mid-Atlantic as well. He was the first heel manager for Bruiser Brody, Kevin Sullivan, and Mark Lewin. Mark Lewin was in Kevin Sullivan's Satanic Group.
So were you.
I was inducted. An old man told me to come behind the table and take my glasses off, and I did it. Good thing it wasn't my pants. Then, as I said, he was in WCW. His first people he managed was Larry Zbyszko and Ron Garvin, after Ron Garvin turned on Dusty Rhodes. Then he managed the J-Tex Corporation, which this was a group of Texas and Japanese wrestlers, kind of like what he did in WCCW. This included Terry Funk, Ix Slater, Buzz Sawyer, the Great Muta, and then Kazu Sakurada, who is known as the Dragon Master. Shortly after this, he would try and bring back WCCW with the likes of Chris Adams, Kevin Von Erich, but he never really reached the peak that he had previously. Gary Hart is one of those managers and bookers that I think, because it was during the territory days, you don't hear as much about him. He wasn't on TV for the mainstream. Not saying he'd be up there with the Bobby Heenans, but I think he'd be comparable to Jimmy Hart. I think he'd at least give us an interview.
You know what? I think you're right.
He also was inducted into the legacy class of the 2020 WWE Hall of Fame.
I know how much you love those legacy classes.
I can't stand them. Especially for someone like this, who, you know, he booked probably the hottest territory at the time, and I know they don't put bookers in the hall. He also managed such an eclectic list of superstars. Others I didn't even mention, you know, Big John Studd, Bobby Shane, just to name a couple. He's also in the Detroit area for big time wrestling. But again, I think his territory staying power is what has kept him from being recognized more. He had, in my opinion, one of the better books of all time when it comes to wrestling stories. It's a hard one to come by now. It's pretty expensive. But if you have a chance, definitely try and find Playboy Gary Hart, My Life in Wrestling. But it is because of my love of the Texas territory and my love of the Von Erich Freebird feud, me interested in Gary Hart, and it was in my interest in Gary Hart that I found all his accolades, and it's because of those accolades and his prowess within the wrestling community that Gary Hart is a PW profile.